Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tech Dialogue. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking all about the CCIE certification. And this episode is actually entitled The CCIE Marathon Continues. And you'll understand more as to why we've kind of titled it that as we kind of go through this interview today. And with me, actually, in this for this actual episode today, we have a special guest called Teneyia. Teneyia is actually going through, going through her own marathon, actually, of the CCIE at the moment, and this is what we're going to discuss today. I've also been going through the CCIE as well, have my own challenges, and hopefully today we can kind of shed some light on the actual CCIE journey itself, not just necessarily what we're trying to achieve as an end goal, but also the actual journey itself and what it takes to actually be able to get through that and get to the stage where you actually get to the lab and taking that exam. So without further ado, I want to introduce Teneyia. Teneyia, welcome to the podcast and thank you for your time today and thank you for joining. Do you just want to start by kind of giving a little introduction to yourself and sort of what you do?
Yes, thank you for having me. It's always nice to talk to you guys. And what I do, I am network engineer. I'll leave, I'll leave it at that. Everyone knows where I work already, if they follow me on Twitter. But I'm still a network engineer. Even I know you guys kind of see two posts from me. But I am still doing that.
Excellent.
And it has been interesting, right? Because while I've been studying and focusing on the CCIE for EI, I'm still doing a lot of data center service provider stuff. So it's still weird.
Cool. So you're kind of mixing the two up. And I think it's important actually for the viewers and for
Yeah.
those that are listening, the EI is the Enterprise Infrastructure of the CCIE certification exam from Cisco. And also actually for those that actually don't know what the CCIE is or what its abbreviation is, it's actually the Cisco Certified Internet Network Expert. And it's basically the highest level of the sort of Cisco certification track that you can achieve, and at least within Cisco, it's known as the PhD of Cisco or certification. So if you get that certification,
Yes.
so you pretty much made it in the IT world, if you like. So how long have you been a network engineer?
5 years.
Okay, cool. And did you start
Yeah.
off with, I assume, just how did you kind of get into IT? In fact, let's cover that.
I went to school for IT early 2000s. I actually graduated back in 2009. But I never did anything with it. I ended up starting a gym or opening a gym and doing that for almost 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know, one day I went to go pay my student loan bill and I was like, I got to quit wasting this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally did that.
Wow.
Stopped training people full time and just got back in IT. I actually started on the help desk
Oh,
and then worked
cool.
my way up to network engineer.
Excellent. Cool. And so you're dealing with, a bit of data center, I assume, and, the general networking stuff today. And what's your kind of day-to-day work like? Do you kind of enjoy what you do? Do you feel challenged every day? Is every day sort of a new day? What is it like for you?
Um, it is definitely a challenge. The day to day kind of depends on the week or I guess time of year. Right now, I'm doing a lot of project tasks,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a lot of data center migrations at the moment.
Wow. Okay. And do you enjoy?
So any task related to that, configurations, and of course, meeting with project managers and a lot of planning, mobs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I can, and low level designs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. So do you primarily, do you see yourself really working with Cisco technologies or are you kind of working across the board with different vendors?
At this job, it's mostly Cisco, a
Okay.
little bit of Arista, but where I am now is mostly Cisco. Before, maybe this time last year, it was Cisco and Juniper.
Oh, cool. So do you have any Juniper certifications, or did you just kind of learn
I do not.
do you plan on getting
Just
any?
kind of learned it on the job. I did. Um, and then the IE just took up way too much of my time. I planned on getting Juniper when I finish this. I have to finish this one first. So
Yeah,
I will get there if
I
needed. I guess at this job, I don't touch any Juniper boxes. So
is that a
we'll
good
see.
thing?
At the last job, I would have been, so it would have been helpful. Not good or bad. This is just a different environment.
Yeah, definitely. No, I
I
understand.
like both of them depending on the environment. I think they're both good. So
Yeah.
I don't mind having both certs.
Well, I'm biased because obviously I work for Cisco, so
Right.
I'm gonna stick with the Cisco for now. But
Right.
so I mean, obviously as a female Black network engineer, how have you sort of found yourself kind of working in IT, as a whole? Have you kind of noticed anything people sort of treat you different, or as you kind of just got through your career and getting through your day job and not noticing any different?
I have, but mostly in my beginning stages.
Mm-hmm.
When I was back in Cali, I got a lot of girls don't do that job,
Mm-hmm.
or I never see people like you do this job.
Mm-hmm.
Every job I've had, I've always been the only girl on my team.
Wow.
Um,
And how does that make, just before you carry on, how does that kind of make you
yeah.
feel? Do you kind of feel the pressure to be able to, because obviously the only girl on the team, you're standing out, and
Mhm.
do you feel pressure to, make sure you're going above and beyond every time, or do you just kind of carry on with your day job?
That depends on the environment. At one point, I did feel a lot of pressure to give 120 so I can be at the same level with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my jobs, I didn't have to do that. I was welcomed. What I said mattered. When I led projects and meetings, they listened. So it kind of depends
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
on the company, maybe the leadership and your team.
Yeah, definitely.
But I only had that the one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more common on the first side.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can
Yeah.
imagine. I can imagine. But anyway, that's, thank you for,
But it's weird because I'm like, "Where are all the girls?" I see everybody on social media, but I never see them at work.
right. This is it,
In my company or when I'm working with other vendors and other companies, I never see them, but, I mean, I know they're out there. I have 1,000,000 followers, and I'm following a whole bunch of people on social, so I know they're out there, I just don't know where they are, where they
Yeah,
work.
no, this is why I asked the question, because obviously on Twitter, that's kind of how we've met as well, and come across
Mhm.
a lot of other female engineers or females that are in IT or the tech field in general, and yet in my day job as well, I don't really come across it. Well, seldom.
Yeah.
I can, I I could probably go weeks without, speaking to somebody, a customer or somebody internal that's working on some sort of project, and it's a female engineer, and I think
Mhm.
I know it's changing. I know we're starting to see more females get into the industry, but I still think, there's so much more room and there's so much more to be done to
Yeah.
kind of get more females into, into the industry. And I think, by you as a person being in tech already, sharing your story, I really think that that helps to sort of empower other females that are either not yet in the industry and want to get into it, or in the industry but
Yeah.
wanting to make some sort of switch. So do you kind of see yourself on, let's say socials, trying to reach out to people like that, or do you see people reaching out to you, females that want to get into tech, reaching out to you and sort of asking for advice?
I do get a lot of messages, on Twitter and LinkedIn from people asking for advice and, a little bit of guidance on how I finally got in and navigate. But I've not reached out to anyone, but I do answer as good as I can the questions that I receive.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
And obviously you're in tech, you've been in tech for a good few years, and I'm assuming you enjoy what you do as a network engineer. Have you
Mhm.
ever looked beyond a network engineer? Have you ever thought maybe I should do something else in tech, or do you really like sort of what you're doing as a network engineer?
I'm still feeling like a baby in the industry. My 5 years compared to, I feel like Twitter's on 25. Everyone I follow has been doing this since, I don't know, when I was in elementary school, seems like. So I'm still enjoying it. I
Hmm.
know I get that question a lot as far as like, because I've had opportunities to be management or move up, but I'm like, no, thanks. I still like the hands-on. I still like to be on the ground. I'm still there. So
Hmm.
at the moment, I have no thoughts of anything else right now.
Oh, cool. That's nice to hear. Hopefully, good few more years in the field, and then
Yeah.
maybe. So, is your plans to sort of move to in the future, of course, move to maybe a management role, or do you really not see a future in management? Do you just really want to try and stay in tech somehow? Hands-on tech. Where do you find yourself in the future?
I want to say like at least the next 5 years, I still want to be hands-on tech.
Yeah.
I'm really having fun. We have this huge project coming up. I swear it's like it involves 21,000 devices. That
Wow.
still excites me. So
Mm.
I still like to be hands-on for a while.
Yeah, no, I know that
Yeah.
feeling, being engaged on big projects. And I think at the start, sometimes, I don't know for you, but for me, when I've been engaged in projects like that, at the start, it's sometimes daunting because you maybe are not across all the technologies, or you've not yet
Mhm.
worked with the customer, and you really don't know what it's going to look like or how the project's going to go. But I think when you see the end goal, and when you actually achieve the end goal, knowing that you've kind of carried out and actually successfully completed a huge project like that, I think it's so fulfilling to
Yeah.
not only be able to say to yourself, I've done that, or I've been a part of that, but also to kind of demonstrate to other people and other companies, if you are looking at taking a step up or laterally moving to another position, you can say, I've done that. Do you sort of get, what sort of
Right.
satisfaction do you get from you fulfilling those sort of projects? Is it the same sort of outcome?
Yeah, it is. I really like a challenge. And so when I've completed something that either I felt imposter syndrome on that I couldn't do, then I did it, or something that I know I can do, but I did it at a higher level
Hmm.
than people thought I could, that I thought I could. Um, yeah, I love that part.
And it's, do you ever feel like, because I've been in situations where I've had to maybe learn things as you go through the project, and when things don't really
Hmm.
go to plan, sometimes you end up questioning your ability. And I guess, to some extent, maybe it's imposter syndrome. But have you ever kind of felt like that? Have you ever felt like maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I need to look at maybe doing something else? Or do you kind of just grab the challenge with both hands and say, no, you know what, I'm gonna get through this?
A little bit of both. I do just grab the challenge with both hands and say, I'm going to get through this. There's been a couple of times where I was like, I can do this, right? Because I know what I'm doing. But it came down to just not knowing that environment at the time.
Right.
And so anytime you get those kind of projects, having all the information that you can get is
Hmm.
most helpful. What the issue ended up being was that not that I didn't know what I was doing, I just didn't have enough information to do what I needed to do.
Yeah,
So that
definitely.
was what the problem was. Anytime I've had really, oh God, I can't do this moment, is anytime it has to do with like Linux and programming. I'm still like, golly, with those things, I'm struggling. But
Mm.
anything service provider, route and switch, I feel really comfortable doing.
Oh, that's nice.
And
That.
security, I'm good with those. But
Yeah.
I'm having to use more like YAML and Python. And those days, I'm feeling like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this too
Yeah.
much longer.
You know what?
I've not done those things since early 2000s, 2007 maybe,
Yeah.
2008. Um, so it's just relearning and having to learn it as I do work is the issue.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things is, and I'm sure many will agree, those that are in tech, when you don't use it, you lose it. And that
Yes.
is so true. I mean, coming to, programming and Python and all the other languages there is out there, I have been in the same position more than once, and it's not a nice feeling, but the good thing is
Right.
when you actually, like you said, you've not used it for so many years, but when you did actually use it and you knew it's a great feeling. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
in that position where I've had to learn certain things for a specific project, such as, let's say, for instance, Ansible, just to automate and to make configuration deployment quicker. And I'm not a Python expert or an automation expert, but I did what I had to do to get the job done. But that
Right.
I've only used that for, say, a handful of projects. And fast forward 3-4 years, I've not touched it, and to go back to it now, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. And
Right.
it's difficult because it's so hard to. I think the thing in tech is there's just so much to learn, and sometimes it's so overwhelming.
Yes.
And I think it just makes sense to at times to not only learn what you enjoy and obviously what you do as a job, but also the other bits and pieces that you pick up to, just to be able to do your job. I think it's nice
Yeah.
to learn those things, but trying to retain it is impossible. And I think you just
It
need,
really is.
and I think, in times like that, it's okay to not doubt yourself, because I've been in situations where I've been like, well, I used to know this and now I don't know this. And I thought to myself, well, am I getting too old for this, or am I not capable? And
Right.
when you actually look at it, that's okay, because it's like I said, there's just so many things in tech to learn and to retain. It's impossible to do. And I think that's an important thing about retention and what you actually learn and retain, because that's one thing that we're going to discuss with the CCIE, all the topics that you
Mm-hmm.
need to cover in the blueprint, and
Oh, yeah.
everything you need to know to be able to actually get past and pass that exam. And I'm sure many will agree that I've got the CCIE already, that unless you actually use all of those skills, you're not really going to remember
Yes.
everything, even after you've obtained your
Right.
CCIE, right? And do you feel like sometimes, the things that you're learning in the certification, do you feel like it's a one-time thing, like I'm never going to use this again, let me just get
I
through it
feel
for
like
the exam?
that
And
about a lot of stuff
yeah.
on these exams. Yes. A lot of it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've said that so many times. Even back Net Plus,
Hmm.
CCNA, I felt like that a lot. Even after I got the NA, and I'm like, yes, now I can be like in these meetings with the network team, I'm gonna understand what they're saying and I can
Yeah.
hop in and troubleshoot. And it's like, no, you can't. You wasn't ready at all. Half of that stuff is never used in the real world,
Right.
but it's okay. I guess it depends on the environment.
Hmm.
I want to say everything I studied Cisco related from 2017 to maybe 19, I didn't see until I got to Spectrum.
Right.
And then I was like, "Oh, that's where this stuff is."
Hmm.
A lot of it started to make sense, but before that, I had no idea what half of it was, and I never seen it at my job.
Right. And I
I was like, "Why'd
think
I study all that for a year for the exam to never see it in the real world?" I guess it depends on where you are.
exactly, and I think it's as well, you study so much in these certifications exams, and for me at least, unless you actually lab it, it only starts to make sense when you're actually going through it with maybe a customer, or
Right.
you have to troubleshoot something and you have that light bulb moment and you're like, wow, this is what
Right.
this is about.
Even when you lab it, you still don't know until you see it in the real world sometimes.
Right, exactly.
Because you make it in the lab and how you see it in the real world is different. So,
Definitely. And I think, one thing with the lab,
yeah.
and, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we touch more on the CCIE specifically, but one thing with labbing as well is, you created the lab 9 times out of 10. So
Mhm.
how it's configured, where it's
Yeah.
broken, and you know how to fix it. Whereas in a live environment with a customer, you just
Yes.
basically told there's an issue and we need to fix it, and
Right.
then, for me at least, so many things start going through my head, like, what could it be? What's the issue? Is it there? Is it here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think you can go through as much certifications, as many certifications as you want, and learn as much as you want. But I really think that that's only half the battle. I think you learn so
Yes.
much more on the job.
So much more on the job and when something's broken.
Definitely, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think, for you, I mean, I know a little bit about your sort of history. I mean, you kind of touched on it at the start of the podcast about sort of having your own gym and stuff like that. Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like, just explain about a little bit about kind of what you did in the past? Because you were really big on sort of, was it weightlifting and stuff like that? And do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like your mentality for that, or from that rather, is carried through to what you do now, and how you sort of position yourself to stay motivated and determined to actually get these certifications?
Um, I do think that the discipline in the fitness world kind of helped with the discipline in the IT world. But well, I used to believe that student athletes is where that discipline came from.
Right.
And then I had kids. So now I'm kind of feeling like the discipline that I had to do either one of those is just kind of in you.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, between my 4 kids, there's 4 really completely different
Hmm.
people doing the exact same thing and handling it completely different ways. And so what I thought that them being student athletes, they would have to get up and go to practice, learn how to schedule, have good time management, do your homework and hang out with friends, go to practice. And so I thought you learn that kind of discipline from doing that at an early age, but
Right.
I don't think so
Right.
because 2 of my kids, they're not getting it. So that's where I thought it came from. I did sports when I was younger and I had to do that. I had track and I had swim, I had to go to school, I had a job, I had homework and friends. So I thought that my discipline and my time management came from just being busy
Hmm.
as a kid.
Right.
Now I think that's in you and that's important with the study and
Hmm.
balancing family and career and the certs and everything else I do, the car meets and the bodybuilding stuff. I'm thinking that just comes down to the person you are. How bad do you really want it? Is it important to you? You schedule it, you make time, you get it done no matter how you feel.
Definitely.
So
And let's just quickly talk about your car, because you are quite a
yeah.
you a car fanatic. Like, what's your sort of?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love sports cars. I've been in love with cars since middle school, high school. I
Wow.
used to love Mustangs back then.
Wow.
Um,
But now you're riding
yeah.
what?
A GTR, a Nissan GTR. That's my dream car. I'm so happy I have that baby.
So you're never gonna get rid of it.
So long. I will never get rid of that car.
Yeah.
Anything JDM I'm a fan of though. I like Supras and the Nissan Silvia.
Hmm.
Of course, I still have my Z.
Yeah.
Anything that drifts and goes under 10 seconds.
Wow.
Not anything. I don't like Lambos and those things are cool, but I like the old,
Yeah. The,
people say shit boxes,
the
the old stuff.
the proper sports cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, the real sports
The
car.
supercars are nice to look at. They're fine, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Not
You
the
find me in Toyota first.
Yeah, definitely. So let's
Yeah.
speak about, I mean, the kids, and having a family and being able to do what you do, because I've got kids, I've got a family. I'm also a male, and
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like, at least in my household, my partner takes on a lot with looking after the kids, dealing with the kids. And I
Mhm.
don't know if that's natural, because kids tend to, I assume, kind of gravitate towards the mother a lot more, I guess, in certain situations. And I think, at least in my household, that's sort of how it is, and that gives me a lot more time to be able to
Right.
study for certifications, lab and work, and go to the gym and do a lot more stuff than maybe she gets to do, because she spends a lot more time, with the children. How do you sort of, from your perspective, how do you get through being able to do what you do and get these certifications, as well as raising children as well? Do you feel like
I've
what I said is? Do you feel like what I said? It's kind of right in sort of your household as well. You feel like the kids gravitate more to you, and then you have a lot more to do.
I think they would. My situation is different.
Mhm.
Being military spouse,
Mhm.
I'm by myself anyway because he's always gone.
Mhm.
Um, so I have no choice but to do everything on my own. But I still feel like even if he was here, kids do that. They kind of, I would say most of the time, moms, but I have seen where they gravitate towards the dad. So
Mhm.
one of the parents is always doing more than the other.
Mhm.
And that does affect, how much you get done in a day. So that's why I'm really strict with my schedule. If I
Mhm.
put it on my schedule, I literally have to get it done because then I don't have time to do everything that I need to do.
Yeah, and I
And
can imagine the pressure of,
it's,
because
yeah.
at least for me and my situation and my family, I couldn't do half of what I do now without my partner, so I'm grateful for
Hmm.
that. But there's been times where, for the CCIE, studying towards a CCIE, I've literally locked myself, well, not
Hmm.
literally locked the door, but I've, shut myself in a room for 6 to 8 hours just to be able
Hmm.
to lab. And my partner has just kind of took the ropes and looked after the kids until, I've come out of the room. And I guess your situation's a lot more difficult, like you say, because you're a military spouse and you just cannot do that. You just cannot shut the door and,
Right.
study like that. So I guess that
Yeah.
routine and that schedule is really important, that you don't deviate from that, isn't it?
And it's really early mornings or late nights. Half of Twitter is like, you're crazy. Why do you get up at 2 in the morning? Because I literally have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things I have to get done between 2:30 and 5:30 a.m. before the kids wake up, and certain things I have
Wow.
to do after they go to bed. So
Wow. That's
it is what it is. Um, I have no idea. A lot of people, they always ask me, how do you do this and how do you do that or why?
mm-hmm.
I just do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy. The kids are busy. They have sports and volleyball. I have car stuff and work and study. I just have to do. If I want to get things done, I have to get up early.
Mm-hmm. And I think,
So,
am I right in saying that, I think you as a person, I think you see the end goal, and I think your
hmm,
mentality and your attitude, it kind of just leads you to that determination to get things done. As you say, it don't matter the time, I'm going to find a way to do
right.
it, and I'm going to do it. And is that kind of your take on it? Do you just think, time goes out the
Yeah.
window? If I've got to do something, I'm going to do it? Because even
Yeah.
we're in total different time zones, but I've seen you sometimes tweeting when I'm waking up in the morning, and I think you're just about finishing a lab and going to sleep, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that the grind's real.
Yeah, I just and I also get that question like what keeps you motivated? And that's why I had that tweet pinned to the top of
Mhm.
my page. Like, there is no such thing as motivation. Is Your discipline is way more important
Mhm.
than your motivation. Because to me, that's a feeling.
Mhm.
And people who know me, like, I don't believe in feelings, and like, I don't do things when I don't feel like doing it. I do them because they need to be done, and
Mhm.
that's just kind of what gets me through. I'm not motivated to get up at 2:45 so I can go to the gym at 3 in the morning,
Yeah,
but
no
I
way.
didn't like being fat, so I'm gonna get up and go to the gym in the morning. I don't
Right.
always like to eat healthy and count calories. I was motivated to do that for,
Mhm.
what am I on, 10, 12 years? But I mean, I prefer to do that than go back to being fat. So it's just like, what do you
Mhm.
really want?
Mhm.
It just comes down to how bad do you want it.
That's it.
And
That's
22 was great for my career, but terrible as far as my social and gym life. I didn't get to
mm,
the gym but 4 times all year.
mhm.
And people ask me all the time, like, how do you stay so lean and like work out with me and go to the gym with me? I was eating perfectly every calorie, not one over, not one under, because I couldn't go to the gym. And did
Wow.
that suck sometimes? It really did. But I mean, I couldn't burn the calories any other way. I was
Wow.
studying 5, 6 hours a day for the IA, working 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
going to track and football and volleyball games. So I had no time for gym. So my only choice, eat perfect because you can't burn it off. So
Wow.
it's just, it is what it is. I don't want to be fat. So there's no overeating. There's no late night snacking.
Hmm.
It just is.
That you know what, that is inspirational because obviously you know yourself, I've been through the same journey, or the marathon as we're calling it, because you know the marathon
Mm-hmm.
continues for us, and we'll speak about that. But
Yes.
I understand what it's like to be literally just sat at a desk trying to configure things, trying to do it in a certain time,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
pretty much not really eating. At least for me, I think when I studied for the CCIE, and you know, 2022 for me as well was sort of rough in as well, in terms of everything I put on hold just to be able to try and get the CCIE. And you know, literally everything
Yeah.
from family to events to other certifications
Mm-hmm.
to things related to work. If I could put it on hold, I was
Yeah.
putting it on hold. And that's how much I wanted to get the CCIE. And everything for me went out of the window. You know, the gym went out of the window,
Yeah.
family time went out of the window, sleep went out of the window.
Yeah.
You know, not as crazy as you, but you know, I was waking up at, you know, stupid times in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to
Mm-hmm.
start getting into a routine in terms of being able to lab, because I knew if I went to sleep early and I woke up early, I knew the kids were still going to be in bed, so that gave me a little bit more time to be able to study.
Yeah.
And everything just changed. And I think for me personally, when I was studying for the CCIE, everything, my health deteriorated a little bit, because
Yes.
it took a toll on me. And even to this day, I think I spent so much time sitting at a desk going through labs and going through blueprints and stuff like that. You know, I started to get neck ache and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
to a point where both of my so I've done 2 attempts of the CCIE security now. The first one, it was more like a go and see what it's like, understand the exam,
Right.
see how far I'm off, and then go again next time. The second time, it was a sort of let's try and pass this. But I think just talking about the health, you know, I think because I'd spent so much time sat at a desk, I recall getting to lunchtime in the lab exam, and that's where everyone takes a break, as you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
go and get some lunch. And my back was in pain, my neck was in pain, and that was kind of, it was
Yes.
just throwing me off the exam, you know, because I couldn't concentrate because I'm rubbing my neck, and it just wasn't a good
Right.
experience. So I think, you know, when we're talking about health with these certifications, especially the CCIE, or you know, anything on the same level, I think, you know, it's important to take care of your health. And I think at least you managed to do that with the calorie intake. But I think a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that, or they feel like they don't, and they just throw it out the window because they're so focused on the exam.
Right. No, and it's hard. In the beginning, I did catch myself snacking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit at this computer and I would just snack. It was chips or sunflower seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I started eating candy, stuff I hadn't had in years. It was just easy to have up here while I was not moving for 10 hours a day.
Right.
Um, so no, that is really hard. That's why you just have to be really focused on.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been fat before, like 200 pounds. That is, hard line for me to never go back to. So other people might not be like that. They might not have that problem.
That's a good point, because you know, I don't know where you're coming from in that respect, but I know what it's like to have been somewhere and to not want to go back to that. So you do anything
Right.
you can do to not go back to that, because you know what it's like, you
Right.
know. So I'm kind of referring to sort of when I was growing up, and sort of not having everything I wanted, and basically living at the bottom of the barrel. And
Mhm.
I've been there, so I know what it's like, and it's not nice. So I think my work ethic and the way that I work and the way that I grind to be able to do what I do, yeah, it might seem crazy to some people, as you pointed out, you know, with sort of your routines and your mentality, but unless you've been in these sort of positions, you really can't relate to it.
Right.
And I think that's one thing, at least for me and my journey and my marathon, that's what keeps me going, because, you know, I know that there's always somebody else working harder than me out there. So I'm going to work
Right.
harder than somebody else, you know, and that keeps me pushing, because I know that, especially in the tech game, you know how fierce it can be. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
kind of sit back, relax, and let your skills become stale, you know, you aren't going very far, you know. So
Right.
I think that mentality is, you know, really important. So I really understand where you're coming from with that. So just speak to me about, before we really get into the nitty gritty of the CCIE and sort of your journey, speak to me about the certifications that you've been through at the moment and what led you up to the point of CCIE.
I have a ton of certs in both industries, but in the tech world,
Wow,
I've
is that
had,
you?
yeah, that's another reason why my brain is fried, because at one point I had to keep my fitness certs active.
Hmm.
I had 4 of those
Wow.
also, because I was still training people. Even though I closed my gym, I was still trying to stay on top of everything to keep training. People do and don't care about having a certified trainer, but I don't know. I'd like to keep my things active. So I did for a long time. I think just up until 2020, I let everything expire.
Wow.
It just became too much. Like one point, you're literally just studying all day long. You have no life
Mm.
because you got to renew the fitness certs every 2, 3 years. You got to renew the tech stuff. So I've let the fitness stuff go.
So is it more
But
just a
I've
leisure
had,
thing now with with the fitness? Is
yeah,
yeah, leisure. Right. Cool.
yeah. I just let that go. I feel like people who know me for a long time, who've trained with me before, they know I know what I'm doing. I don't need the certs to
Hmm.
kind of solidify I know what I'm doing, or I've trained enough people at this point to prove to people, or they just have to have a
Experience.
conversation with me
Hmm.
to know that I know what I'm doing. So those can go for now.
Hmm.
But on the tech side, I have Net Plus all the way up to the IE written. Um, And I started with Net Plus because I didn't know much about networking. My tech experience up to then was more software development and
Right.
database stuff. And so I really wasn't going back to school. And I just started collecting certs.
Hmm.
So I did the Net Plus and then the old NA, where it was the 200, 125, I think, the
Hmm.
big combination. And then, of course, the old NP with the route switch and T-shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after the change, got the enterprise. Well, I migrated to the written. I didn't have to
Yeah.
take the encore.
Hmm. So when
I still
you,
did for fun, but just
yeah,
didn't need it.
yeah, because you already had the, yeah, I think I were the same. I think I did the, I started off with, well, I started off networking, um, because of really university and in the course that I was doing. Started off down the CCNA track, completed, I think, the CCE first, which was, as you probably know,
Hmm.
half of the CCNA. Because at that time, pretty much like yourself, didn't really know much in terms of networking, and to be honest, didn't really have the confidence to be able to pass the CCNA, because when I was at that stage, the CCNA to me was like how the CCIE is now to me.
Yeah, me too. And then I had heard all these horror stories and people failing so many times. And yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
took the combo exam, because I didn't want to have to worry about the first exam and then the second.
Well, that's how I felt.
And
That's how I, well, when I did the
yeah.
C, the when I passed the CCENT, I was the same. I was like, oh man, now I've got to do another one before I can get the CCNA.
Right. That was why I didn't want to do that one, to pass and be done, especially when I heard that the NP was 3
Hmm.
exams. And I was like, I gotta take 5 exams to get this thing. So I was like, I'm gonna do this combination one so I don't have to worry about it and focus on the NP.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you
That
know,
was a rough year because I was trying to hurry up before the change, that February date, and it
yeah.
was, man, that was rough.
I think
I remember those
I
times.
missed the change with the CCMP routing and switching, because I think the way the track that I did, I did the CCNA, well, finished the CCNA after I passed the ICND1 and got my full CCNA. And then I went on to, at the time, do the CCNA security when it was a thing,
Oh, yeah.
because I was looking at getting into security, and I went through the content with that exam, and I think I just used the book. I did very minimal labs. And for the CCNA security, because it was a totally new domain for me, I was very nervous, and I actually thought I'd failed the exam, and I was going through the questions, and I was angry with myself. I'm like, nah, I failed this. I've not passed.
Yeah.
and
That's what I said too.
and it was crazy because when I actually finished the exam and found out I passed, not only did I pass, but I actually passed with, better score than my CCNA routing and switching. I think so. Like, wow, what's going on
Oh,
here?
yeah.
It was crazy. And then after I did the CCNA security, I thought, right, okay, that's enough CCNAs. But then I found myself doing the CCDA, the design associate, when
Oh,
it was a
yeah.
thing. So I did that and I passed that. And then I said, right, that's it. Now I need to jump up to MP. And I think maybe I was kind of trying to hold off the MPs because it was like a professional, and I'm like, wow, I'm not there yet. I can't do that. But
Right.
but I did it anyway. So I went for, I did the CCMP, routing and switching, or enterprise as it is now. And I think I did the switching first because I heard on the grapevine that that
Mhm.
was the easier one. So I
Yes.
went with the easy option, give it, test the water, and I passed that. And then I did the routing one, and I thought I'd failed that, but I actually passed that, so I was kind of good on that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I
That
passed
one
that.
took me 3 tries. I
Oh wow,
hated that
okay.
one.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
it
know
took
what? I
me 3
found that
tries.
apart from getting into the deeper details of like OSPF and EIGRP, I didn't find it too bad. And I think by the time I'd finished that, I knew that I only had the troubleshoot to pass. That's where the
Mhm.
nerves started really coming, because I thought, troubleshooting anything can, if you
Right.
don't know what you're looking for, it's difficult. And
Right. Right.
with that, I thought, wow, I've got to go do a certification exam, and I've got to troubleshoot these issues. And I just, yeah, I was just nervous, and
Yeah.
I got through it, passed the CCMP routing and switching. I was really surprised at how quick I managed to get through that. And I thought, oh, maybe, I've got
Yeah.
a good knowledge base now, or, I've just been lucky and got through it. But I think after that, for me, it was then on to the CCMP security. And
Mhm.
it's great. So when you were fighting, trying to pass before the exam change with the CCMP, routing and switching, I was fighting to pass with the CCMP security before the exam change. And for me, it was a case of, I really need to pass this because I've been through the content, and I really don't want to kind of have to look at the
Mhm.
new stuff and start again. And I
Right.
was struggling, and
That's how I felt too.
I was struggling, and I think I did 3 attempts at the CCMP security, and I couldn't pass. I can't remember which one. I just couldn't pass one of them anyway.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think I got to a point where I did enough, and I could take the written, the CCIE security written exam. And again, I was the same. You're kind of fighting with the time, and I think I did 3 attempts of the previous CCIE written, and I failed all 3. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, maybe I should just wait until the new version comes out and then go and try that.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. So I waited till a new version came out. My CCMP stuff all transferred across. I think with the CCMP security, I had to take the core exam, which obviously counts for the written.
Yep.
And I passed, first time, and it was like, wow, like maybe it's because I was accustomed to the new content, and within Cisco I was working on the new content, but I managed to
Oh,
pass that
right.
a lot quicker than I did with the last one. So for me, it was like, wow, maybe I should kind of take note of that for the future. And that's exactly, and I'm
Mhm.
mentioning this now because that's exactly what I'm thinking about this CCIE security, because I've done 2 attempts, and it's been a stressful 2022. and
Yes.
the marathon continues, like I say. And now I'm at a stage where there's exam changes coming, and I'm like, do I
Yeah. I
rush
feel
to
like it's
do
here. I
it?
feel like January, they
Yeah,
changed everything, and when we go back, it's gonna be completely different.
exactly. So I'm like,
Scenarios and questions, yeah.
And you know what it's like, you kind of get accustomed to what to expect, but when the
Mhm.
exam changes come, you don't know what to expect again, so you're back in that position.
Right.
So for me, it's kind of, I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, it's like starting again sometimes.
Yes. That's why, unfortunately, I rushed an attempt in December because I felt like big changes was coming for in January.
Mm-hmm.
And I just maybe I don't know what it is. I feel like the first half of the exam for me is perfect. This goes really smooth. Um, I don't really know the points or the scoring, but I feel like I didn't miss any questions because anything I was supposed to verify worked. But when I started getting into the SD-WAN stuff and
Mm-hmm.
the Ansible and that stuff, that's where I started to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't work with those things. And labbing them, you can only do so much. I can't do those in GNS or Eve. Some people can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it set up where I can. And so
Let,
it's
let,
hard to learn those through like YouTube and watching other people lab.
mm-hmm.
The demos and the D Cloud I'd use, but you can only do so much. You can't
Right.
do the tasks that they would ask you to do in an IE lab.
Right, definitely. Let's speak about that. Let's speak about sort of your preparation for the CCIE Enterprise, because for me, I think it's, I wouldn't say necessarily easier, but I do work for Cisco, so I do, or I
Hmm.
can kind of get access to sort of the technologies a lot easier, I would say. And not only that, I
Yeah.
do also have, a lab environment where I kind of built out as much as I can towards the blueprint and what I need to learn. So for me, I think that's made not my experience easier, because obviously I've still not been able to pass the exam twice, but it's given me the
Right.
ability to understand a lot more of the blueprint than I would have been able to do having not had
Right.
that sort of access. So how have you prepared for your CCIE?
It's definitely hard because, like I said earlier, what you get exposed to depends on where you work.
Right.
And my last 4 jobs, I never had to do anything automation related because we've always had a dev team. And then I've managed DNA Center before, so that part of the exam was fine. The menus change, like the GUI changes,
Right.
but the functions, the tasks don't really change. It's just kind of learning to navigate the new menus.
Mm-hmm.
So that one I was fine with, but it was all of the vManage and certain things like that that I've never been able to touch before because I can't lab it unless I buy it, which is
Right.
expensive. And we had that in Spectrum, but again, my team never touched it, so it wasn't available to
Mm-hmm.
me. So it was really hard to get hands-on with those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I would watch a ton of YouTube videos on that stuff and watch other people lab it who could, or kind of like how your security videos. Oh my God! Again, thank you. All the FTD stuff you posted, lifesaver. When I
Thank
was a
you.
network engineer at the dispatch center,
Mm-hmm.
I had never had to manage the FTD stuff, FMC before because we had a security team who did that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did at the dispatch center, I was on YouTube all the time. So videos like that,
Mm-hmm.
like showing you how to navigate through the pages and do certain tasks.
Right.
That's what I would do for the vManage, and then of course the Cisco D Cloud. But again, you can only do so much.
Right.
Some of the tasks in the lab, you're not available those features, and if they are, it's not exactly the same because it's a demo.
Exactly.
So I've basically used that demo to get a good feel of the GUI, what was under what menu, so that I can move fast, but not to actually learn a task, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, no, that took me.
Um,
Yeah, it makes total sense. Time.
yeah. So I spent a lot of time on there knowing, where the template menu is and what's
Mm-hmm.
under there and what to click and what's under provisioning. But most of the time, my study consists of printing the topics,
Mm-hmm.
and I will read books on the topics, watch videos, and then lab it. And I would try to lab it to the point where I can explain what I'm doing to my kids or
Right.
someone who's not technical. And when I can explain something to them
Mm-hmm.
or walk someone through a job interview of how to troubleshoot something, then I felt comfortable enough to go on to the next topic.
Right. Right.
And I literally start at the top and just highlight and work my way down.
Mm-hmm. Right. And do you feel like, because now you've done a couple attempts, so you know what it's like, did you ever find yourself when you was labbing trying to beat the clock sort of thing?
Yes. All of October and November was that. I literally set a 2-hour timer on my phone, and I just wanted to get through the first module in that first 2 hours.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't realize how much pressure the time would be. 5 hours seems like such a long time.
It's
8
nothing.
hours, well, 5 hours for the operations, the
Yeah.
optimized part, and it seemed like such a long time. I love you, Cisco, but I really hate that they took away the time rollover
Yeah.
because after the design section, I had like an hour and a half left.
Mm.
And I'm
Hmm.
like, if that rolled over to the optimize and operate, I would have been fine.
Yeah, definitely. I know that. Yeah,
That I did hate big
I still
time
hate it
because the
now.
time gets away from you so fast.
Hmm.
Even as fast as you were going, I don't know, 5 hours seems like a lot, but it's not enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been my struggle with the CCIE security. Um, it's not necessarily the technologies that I'm trying to configure and work with and actually carry out the tasks that they're asking. It's the
Hmm.
time, and I'm not looking at the time
Yes.
in the corner, but I know it's there in big numbers.
Right.
But
Right.
it's, like you say, 8 hours as a whole seems like a lot, but I think my
Hmm.
first CCIE attempt, I really used up in the first section, I used up all the time pretty much just because I wanted to be
Yeah.
sure of, what I was answering. And then in the
Yeah.
second section, it was more of a case of let me work through the tasks top to bottom and understand what it is that they're asking. Didn't really have any
Hmm.
intention of passing, but the second time I was game to pass, and I thought, let me get through this first section. And the first section, similar to you, I finished it and I had time, and if you could roll over that time, it would really help.
Yes.
Because when I got to the operate and optimize section, it really the time goes really quick, and it's not
So
even like you
fast.
just sat there reading and typing slow, configuring things.
Right.
I was typing, trying to
Me
configure.
too. I cut my nails and everything. I'm like, nothing's gonna slow me down. Like I was trying my best to do anything I could to increase my speed. And I don't know that pressure. And it's not just the clock is going so fast. Little stuff like going between devices and reading
Yes,
between the different screens and through all of your
yes.
resources. All that takes up just way too much time
Yeah,
sometimes.
and it adds pressure. I
Yes, a
not
lot of
only was I
pressure.
typing quick, so you don't really, when you're typing so quick and trying to configure things, you don't really have time to validate what you're doing yourself sometimes. And I got
Right.
to a point where like, I'm just configuring it. If it works at the end, then that's good. If it doesn't, I'm moving on to the next best task and then
Right.
gonna continue and come back to it, because you'll know yourself, you don't really have time
Right.
for error. You literally need to configure and make
Yeah.
sure it's pretty much right. And for me, it was, it's one thing configuring as quick as you do to try and get the task done, but then
Mhm.
another thing that I realized from the first attempt of the CCI security is that you don't you're not really guided. Like, it doesn't say, work from task one all the
Right.
way through. You literally have to work it out yourself. And I guess that's where the expert part comes in. But for me, it was a big shock
Right.
because on the first attempt, I was working through task, thinking I'll configure everything in
Mhm.
task one, and then if that works, then it'll lead to task two. But it don't work
That's what
like
I
that.
thought too. It does not.
It
Right.
doesn't. So on the second
No.
attempt, I thought, right, I'm gonna do task one and then maybe do a couple in task three and then come back to task two. And
Right.
it's really up to
Right.
you how you configure it. So you can't even really, come away from the exam and think, what, this is how I'm gonna do it. This is the perfect way of doing it, because you just don't know.
Right. That's why it's at least 2 attempts because the first one is just to get a feel of how the exam is. Because during the NP, there was no moving around. You couldn't go backwards.
Right.
And you just it's one question, then after the next, if you skip or you miss, you're just done. that's not really how it is. So you can kind of skip through tasks.
Mhm.
And on my third attempt, I actually did that because I knew where my weaknesses were.
Mhm.
I actually started in section 3 first and tried to knock out my Python and my Ansible stuff first. You didn't really have to type out the script, but you had to put it in the correct order.
Right.
And so I did that stuff first before I went back and did what I knew I can already do fast. I can configure BGP fast and peer
Mhm.
groups. So that wasn't, so that's what I would change the third time.
Mhm.
And that was helpful. It's probably why that one was my highest score and my best time,
Mhm.
because that was how I went about it. But you don't know to do that until you go do it a couple of times and you kind
Exactly.
of figure it out.
And even
But
then, you
yeah,
don't know if it's the right
that's
way.
rough. Right. And then even then, when you're doing something in section 2 and 3 and it doesn't work, it's because
Mhm.
you didn't do one. So you can't really verify until you go back. So that was kind of
Exactly.
hard. But that's how I planned it.
Mhm.
And I just knew that the task, like navigating through vManage or something, would take me longer. So
Mhm.
I did those first because I knew it
Mhm.
would be faster to configure the underlay and the BGP stuff.
Right.
I don't have no idea if that even worked or how it compares to the second attempt, but that was just how I went in that last time. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna start from the bottom this time and knock out the
Mhm.
automation questions first.
And the crazy thing is, like when I did my second attempt, there were things that problems that I run into that I didn't run into the first time round because I either didn't cover it
Hmm.
or I just didn't configure something the way that I configured it the second time round. So this
Right.
isn't, I feel like it's a never ending battle until you actually pass the exam, because you could go back and do it again, and the way you configure something this time
Hmm.
is going to affect the way something else works. And it's like a snowball
Right.
effect. And it's just like, for me, the second time I got into a little bit of a pickle because I configured everything, and for the first couple of hours up until lunch, I felt like things were going well and that were better from my first time. So I thought, wow, maybe I've got a chance of actually passing this now. And I felt good. And we got to lunch and everyone's like speaking about sort of how they think they're doing and the pressure that they're under, and
Hmm.
speaking to one another. And I didn't want to talk to no one. I just wanted to get back in the room. I was
Right.
like, yo, let me just
I know.
let me just go back in and
Unfortunately, I
finish.
hated lunch. I felt like it was not a distraction, but like I didn't go back as focused and
Hmm.
zoned in as before lunch.
Hmm.
And I felt like where did I leave off? Like what was I doing? I had to go
Hmm.
back and look at this and check that. I hate it after lunch.
Yeah, me too. I think
Yeah.
second time, I think I got a sandwich and I was that stressed, even though I felt good because I felt like I was doing better
Mhm.
than last time. I didn't even eat the
Yeah.
sandwich. I don't want to eat. I just want to do this exam.
Right. Yeah, that second time I stayed in my head on where I had left off, what I need to
Hmm.
verify when I get back. Um, yeah, what question I was on, like where in the config I was, because the exam just cuts off on you in the
Yeah,
middle
right.
of the typing. And so I tried to stay in my head on where did I leave off at and what was I doing so I can just jump right back in and
And it's
start where I left
difficult
off.
to do that, isn't it? Because we walk away from the exam screen, and one, you got to try and make sure everything's saved, and two, if you've got any issues that you know about, you spend time over lunch thinking about them issues and how you're going to maybe
Right.
solve it. And three, as
Right.
soon as the exam resumes, the time's ticking, and you got to remember where you were at, what you were going to do next, and
Yeah.
even that adds pressure, right?
Yes, it does. I think they add so much pressure on us. I mean, the CCIE wouldn't be what it is without all the extra
Right.
pressure. But to me, even the room, the environment is
Hmm.
is mess. Like it's so cold in there, I could barely focus.
Yes.
My hands were like freezing. I couldn't type at one point, and I was like, "This is bad." My nose is running, so I couldn't focus because my hands are cold. I'm
Hmm.
trying to type. Yeah, it was all bad.
Yeah, I know. And I had
I
people
was
in
like,
there.
"This is a lot of pressure."
Oh, I know. And I had people, at least on my first attempt was not that bad because I was the only one. There was nobody else in the room.
Oh.
So for
Mhm.
me, it was like, obviously it's my first attempt at CCIE, so I didn't know if that were normal or if that was, a regular
Right.
occurrence, but I was the only one in the room. So I had no sort of pressures from listening to anybody else, or somebody else getting up and walking
Mhm.
out and saying they're finished. It was just me, so it was all on me. And obviously the proctor Whereas the second
Right.
time I had 2 or 3 other people doing different CCIE exams. Some had done them before, some it were the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And even the environment, like you say, adds the pressure because, for me, I had some of these guys in the room that were running into issues and calling the proctor and saying this isn't working, or one of the guys got up
Right.
after design and he went for a break because he said he finished. So, and I was still going. So I like, am I supposed to be finished by now? And it
Right.
just adds that crazy pressure. And
Right.
I'm like,
It's so
wow.
much more pressure. And that's the weird part. Yeah, that did add a lot. And one thing that kept getting to me was hearing the guy next to me. He kept huffing and puffing, and I was like, "Dang! Like, what could he be working on? Like, why is it? I don't know." After a while, that starts to get in your brain,
Yeah.
and I would for a good half of the exam, I was able to kind of tune that out.
Hmm.
But then, like, he's moving so much, and his keyboard is hitting hard. Like, he was really frustrated, and I was sitting there like, are we on the same test? Like, where am I? Am I not far enough to be that frustrated? Like, what's going on? Then I started getting worried, like, what could he be working on that I'm not there yet? Now I'm really
Hmm.
freaking out.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the whole experience is just
It's
it's a lot of
yes,
pressure.
it's a
It's
lot.
it's a mental game the whole way through.
And the thing is, it doesn't just start and end there. It's as we're talking about this marathon, it's something that the pressure starts when you commit to studying for the CCIE,
Yeah.
when you actually schedule the exam, when you know that you're going to have to travel there and actually take the exam. The pressure starts a long time before you actually sit in
Yes.
that room. And I think all of that and the build up to that, and then doing the exam, and then finding out whether you in our case fail, and then have to go back to the drawing board to do it again, that it
Mhm.
for me, it's like that pressure never ends. So when I finished the
Never.
first attempt, I got back home and told my manager at work, and straight away I was back on the computer thinking, right, how can I tackle this next time? And it never stopped.
Right.
24 hours after the exam, I rebooked my second attempt straight away,
Mhm.
and I was just so focused on trying to get that CCIE. And you know I just studied and studied and studied so that it never ended. So from the start of, I think
Right.
for me, 2022, pretty much the start of the year, I was committed to getting the CCIE. So I focused, labbing, reading, booked the exam. I think my first attempt was in April last year, I think it was, around about then.
Mhm.
Failed that and then carried on and rebooked again for July or August. I think it might start of August. I think I booked the exam for. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pressure continued through to then. And then when I failed that again, I remember I was sat on the train going home, because where I live from the exam center or the Cisco office, it's a good 4 hours away from where I live. And I was angry with myself. I kind of knew it was 50-50 as to
Right.
whether I passed or failed, but I was on the train, sat there looking at the next available lab dates, thinking, right, I need to book this again. And it would
Mhm.
just go, 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 go. And then as soon as I got home, my partner said to me, Kelvin, I can see kind of how much pressure you've been under. We're pretty much approaching the end of the year. You spent all year doing this. There's so many other things that you want to do, and you're literally just putting your life on hold for this certification. Maybe you should just take a few days out, think about what it is you want to do, and then decide to whether you want to
Right.
book the exam or not again. And I ended up, for us anyway, my we had a newborn baby in October
Mhm.
2022, so not long after I did my second attempt, and I really thought I'd passed that time so that I didn't have to try and go through that with a newborn, because I knew it'd be difficult and I didn't want to kind of leave my partner
Right.
to deal with all that. And I think it was selfish of me, because I was still kind of focused on getting the CCIE. As 24 hours again after the second attempt, I booked the lab exam for December the same year. Now that's, still got a newborn baby, and yourself, you dedicate your time to studying to be able to pass the next attempt. And I think a couple of weeks into doing that and getting over being angry, I really sat back and thought about it, and I said, you know what, it's not fair on my partner. It's not fair on, you know,
Mhm.
my children. You know, I've got other things that I need to be doing. It's not fair on my family. And I decided, you know, December's not a good option for me because, you know, I've got a newborn and all the rest of it. And I ended up actually cancelling my third attempt at the CCIE, just to really take some time out and recoup, because I felt like I got to a point where health wise was, you know, deteriorating a little bit, as I said, because, you know, I just spent so much time sat at a desk and not really doing anything else.
Right.
And it wasn't healthy. My lifestyle wasn't healthy, you know, the family life wasn't healthy. And, you know, I just felt like I was being selfish. So, you know, I really had to take time out to kind of go back to the drawing board and just really take time out, really. So for me, it was kind of 2 attempts, and let me just take a break now and see what I want to, you know, want to do next. Because I think
Right.
for me, it wasn't about, as I said, it wasn't about the technology. Yes, I ran into issues with troubleshooting stuff and all the rest of it, but I felt like I was fighting the clock more than anything else. And
Right.
I just got tired of fighting the clock, and I felt like I need a break from fighting the clock. So, you know, I think
Right.
I'm gonna do my third attempt at some point, I think, but at the moment I'm focusing on other stuff that I've kind of held back. So like the CISSP and stuff, which I've pretty much, you know, held back because of CCIE.
Right.
But now I think I've come to the realization that it's gonna be when the changes have happened. So I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board, and I'm gonna have to maybe look at the way that I
Yeah.
approach the exam before I go again. But what's your plans? You know, is your marathon still going on? Are you still planning on getting this CCIE at some point? What's going on?
I am. It's just the same dilemma as last March, because I, if you remember, kept flip-flopping between service provider and enterprise, but it's
Right.
because where I was working, and I was like, which one makes more sense? And then it was like, well, might as well finish enterprise. I've already started it,
Hmm.
but I really want a service provider. Then I was working at Spectrum, and I was like, this is what I really want to do. So I don't know. Someone actually mentioned to me if my blocker with passing was because I didn't even want it. But yes and no,
Hmm.
because it's not that I had this subconscious blocker with not wanting to do enterprise in the first place. So it wasn't like I wasn't passing because I just couldn't get the technologies. I wasn't grasping the concepts. It was never using the stuff and having
Right.
to learn it as I needed to accomplish the task. So that was what the problem was. I do think I'm going to continue, but I will take a break because the pressure's not just in the building. It's like missing everything with my kids. I dropped them off at the mall instead of being at the mall. I dropped
Right.
them off at the movies instead of being at the movie. And my daughter's like, "You never come to anything."
Hmm.
I have to study. Or she goes, "So are you just studying this weekend, or like, can we go have a girls' day out?" And so that's also is part of the pressure. Like I have to freaking pass because all this time that I'm
Hmm.
sacrificing, she'll never be 12 again. I'll never get this weekend back. And
Exactly.
it's like upsetting them because I studied too much and then failing, like
Hmm.
that messes with you.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And I think it upsets you as well. You know, I've got two young kids, and some of the things that I miss, you know, when my partner's taking them out to maybe play gyms or, you know, whatever it may be, and I'm
mhm,
like, no, I need to stay at home, I need to study. Like you said, that's not
mhm,
that's the times that you're not going to get back, you know, the first things that they might be
right.
doing. And I think at one, I might be mistaken, but I'm sure at one time I remember receiving a video from our 2-year-old, and well, from a partner of our 2-year-old, and he was starting to ride or balance on his bike, and you know I wasn't there for that.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
stuff like that, and it's like, you know, you really need to. Yes, these things are important to us to get, not only from a professional standpoint, but I think it becomes personal as well. Um,
it does.
but at the same time, it's important not to forget about life and everything else that's going on around you.
Right.
you know.
Especially when you're studying like that through holidays or the summer, and the kids are on vacation and they want to do all this stuff, and you're literally spending 6 to 8 hours studying. That's huge.
Exactly.
Or when I had to take my laptop to my freaking grandma's birthday party, like it's stuff like that. Like I was on call, but I also had to study because I didn't get to study
Hmm.
when my daughter had a volleyball tournament, and then I had track with my other son, and so
Hmm.
when I could study, I did. So I was taking my laptop with me everywhere. So it's not just the test environment and the questions and the clock. There's so much more that
Definitely.
affects your mental and the thing. Part of the pressure for me is just having to pay 30 days in advance. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 30 days. Like, let me pay when I'm ready to take the exam.
Right.
So it's everything. I
Mm.
hate that 30-day window.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe that's just come from 20 years of Marine Corps. Like, I don't plan too far ahead
Hmm.
because the Marines will do whatever they want with you. And
Hmm.
I've never been able to plan too far ahead because I have to move, or there's a deployment, or there's always something.
Right.
And so that messes with me, the paying so far in advance. Like, I don't know what I'll be doing in 30 days. I might not contest in 30 days.
Right. Yeah.
So
And I
that was pressure
understand.
for me.
Yeah. And I understand. So,
Having to pay for the exam, which means I got to pay for my flight and the
mhm.
hotel to make sure I get everything on the same day.
Yeah,
That was a lot of pressure
it's
for
like
me. So,
committed. It's like you're committing to when
right.
you schedule, but then that 30 days in advance is like, right, there can't be
To
any
me, that's a
blocker.
really long time.
Hmm.
Anything comes up in those 30 days. I
Exactly.
mean, I've had to move in almost that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
And you've
so
got
much can
kids,
happen for at
so
least,
things
right.
change.
Right. So even that was pressure for me. I hated that,
Yeah,
having to book all my flight and everything so far in advance.
yeah, definitely.
And
So,
then I don't know, depending on where you live, like I booked in December. There's blizzards in Colorado and stuff. Like
right.
there was just so much. So that's part of the pressure for me too. The booking so far
Hmm.
ahead.
Yeah, no, it's
I hate
crazy.
that.
I understand. So, do you think you'll
Yeah.
take or do you think, are you planning on passing this year? Or do you think you'll take it again this year, or are you just gonna kind
I'm
of?
not gonna lie. Just because of work, part of me is like, I might as well just get the SPIE. I was
Hmm.
really just trying to finish out my route switch journey.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I will never use that stuff where I work
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
As far as the automation stuff goes, we have a dev team.
Right.
vManage and stuff not used on my team.
Hmm.
I've not had to do anything with SD Access since 2019.
Hmm.
Part of me is like it's a waste. The route and switch is the exact same across everything. That's not changing.
And it
So
comes
part of
back
me
to
wants to
that
just jump back on the SP stuff
exact, and it
because I
comes
do
back
that
to
at
that
work.
thing, doesn't it? Where you're learning all this stuff, or you're doing all this stuff, but you're not using it, so you're just gonna
Mm-mm.
lose it anyway. So it's like you
Right.
say, is service
Right.
provider going to be the better option? Or with me, I work in
Right.
security, so for me it's like that makes sense, working at Cisco even more so than
Right.
anything, working on the technology. But I guess I would have that same dilemma, I think, if I wasn't working direct, because I think for me there's one thing having a passion for learning these things, but then the other thing is actually
Mhm.
using it within your job, because
Right.
your passion is only going to carry you so far, doing maybe weekend projects, or if you do YouTube videos and stuff like that. But
Right.
the work stuff's important as well, because if you're not using it in work, then yeah, it's a conversation,
Right.
isn't
And
it?
nothing for me would even change at work.
Mm.
I mean, my team would be happy. They'd be like, congratulations, whatever. But then, like, it's back to regular scheduled programming, and I wouldn't use a lot of what's there.
Hmm.
My job is a lot of data center service providers. So, basic, well, maybe BGP was an exam I would use.
And then it's that commitment,
So,
of renewing the CCIE. Obviously you can
right.
do other ones, but all the work you put in to get the first one, it's like, do I go through that again for the
Right.
second one, right?
Right. So I don't know. One of my coworkers actually asked me, why was I even doing it? He was like, you're not going to get a pay raise. You're not going to get a promotion. Like, what was the point? And I told him it was literally to finish out the route switch journey. And I just, like, I had everything up to the change. And I
Right.
was like, might as well just finish this out. Because even right before the change, well, I had scheduled the written, but it was just way too close to the deadline. So I was like, I might as well wait because I didn't. And then COVID hit right after the change.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I probably should just wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so
yeah.
I told him it was basically just finishing out what I had started.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does and doesn't make sense for me to get it just because of where I work. but I was literally just finishing what I started.
So are you kind of on the fence now, thinking, what do I do?
I A little bit, just because part of me wants to go back to service provider. That's my
Mm-hmm.
heart and soul. I
Mm-hmm.
was doing this just to finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But service provider is that's my baby. That's what I really want.
Well,
So
I think it's you'll evaluate and I guess decide what the better option is for you. I think half the battle is once you, or at least for me, canceling that third attempt for me was painful, just canceling, because I was so
mhm.
invested in not only
Right,
getting the CCIE but also in the actual journey that I've taken so far. And canceling that was like, oh, so it's over now. Even though I knew
right,
it wasn't over, because my intention is to still take it at one point and my journey continues, or my marathon continues. But yeah, it was difficult to do that. So I understand for you, if you decide to go down that route, it's still like, a big chunk of a year that's kind of gone
right,
into one certification, and now you've got to prep for another certification.
right. I'm thinking this fall because I got to give the kids this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Literally sat here for 8, 12 hours
Yeah.
last summer. If I would, because either between work, because I was working from home, or I was studying.
Right.
And so I will give them this summer for sure. And then maybe after that, I'll hop back on. But yeah,
Yeah.
those kids would not let me give them get rid of this year. And which is fine because since 2018, they literally see me do nothing but study.
Right.
Like I had to grind it out. Just where I was career wise, I was like, I can't keep doing this. Not even just the training and having my own gym. It was 4 kids is a lot at a certain
Yeah.
point, and you have to have 2 incomes at some
Yeah,
point. And we
definitely.
couldn't live off the Marine Corps too much longer
Mm-hmm.
by itself.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I needed a real job
Yeah.
because the gym, and I was a store manager at GNC before, but that was like just to get me out of the house because
Right.
I had worked from home for 12 years.
Wow.
And so I was literally just playing, and I didn't care about the money. I was making like maybe $9, $10 an hour at the time,
Wow.
but I didn't care because I was just out of the house, like with other adults, not talking to kids all day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could care less about the pay for a while. Then it does come to a point where it's like, okay, kids are expensive
Mm-hmm.
when they get a certain age. There's school fees, and then they
Mm-hmm.
eat more. They grow out of clothes every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So like you need real money at some point.
Definitely.
So from 2018 to 20, sheesh, I guess 22, all they've seen me do is work and study, work and
Mm-hmm.
study, work and study.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, there was 2 of them. One of my kids actually wrote about me in a school project, like my mom's work ethic and her determination is crazy. But then you have the other people who are like, all you do is study, and I want to go outside and play, or you never
Mm-hmm.
go to the mall, you never sit with us at dinner anymore. So it's kind of a balance. That's why I do everything I can in the middle of the night because they're sleeping.
Do you think
That's when I use the gym. That's when I study. So that 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., that's when usually I'm here at the desk because they're in the bed.
right, right? Do you think, like, you said one of your children wrote a project about you and your work ethic. Do you think them seeing you kind of grind the way that you do do you think they're kind of looking up to you as a role model and thinking, wow, like I've got something to kind of match or look up to there, and work towards something as well in my future? Or do you think, like, they think, wow, I'm not going to work this hard and I'm going to just try and get things, through as much as I can, really, because I think one of the
Yeah.
things is that sometimes what I see is when your children kind of look at you, and I guess it depends how old they are as well.
Mhm.
But sometimes they look and they think, I don't want to be grinding the way that my parents are grinding, because that
Right.
looks difficult. I really want to be enjoying life. But then on the other hand,
Mhm.
some of them think, because I'm trying to bring my kids up, like, I've done the whole university thing. We're trying to get my and still might go down the PhD route, just to, similar
Mhm.
to you, just to finish that academic journey. Because personally, I was never one that was whoever actually thought I would go to university because I just didn't think I
Right.
was capable or that type of individual. And now that I've kind of proved myself wrong and everybody else, for me, it's a personal journey. It's not to kind of academically achieve anything. It's me and my
Right.
personal stuff. And then I can kind of show my kids, look, I went through this. But then on the other side, I'm like, well, will my kids even really care? Will they be like, well, so what? You did, you got your master's degree. You did.
Right.
I don't care. I don't want that. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I think it's a little bit of both, and it goes back to just our personalities.
Hmm.
Um, because I do and don't do things now because I did or didn't like it when my mom did it. So
Hmm.
I do think my daughter will be like, no, I seen her all these late nights and early mornings. She missed everything with me. I'm not doing what she was doing. I kind of see my daughter doing that.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, when it's something she wants, I see her working that hard for something that she would want. It's kind of weird.
Right.
But my biggest thing with them since they were babies is communication. I've never baby talked to them, and I
Hmm.
try to talk to them like young adults. And so I'd have let them know, I get I'm getting on your nerves, but this is important to me. This is one of my personal goals. Like,
Right.
what is something you want to do? You bust your butt at volleyball. This is how I feel about the certs. So I
Right.
just kind of talked to her about it.
Hmm.
I get you're mad that I can't be at the mall every weekend. But then I'm like, I hate it when my mom came to the mall with me. So I drop you
Hmm.
off with your friends. That's you and your friends thing. I don't have to be there. You guys are 13. I feel like you are mature enough. So I just kind of talked to her.
Yeah. It's a
When she
balance.
wants her girl days, I make time for the girl days, but that's my schedule. It always
Hmm.
goes back to my schedule. They know how important that is. You want to do something, let's schedule it so that I
Right.
can study and we can have mommy daughter time.
Exactly.
So I just have that communication with him. I get that you're frustrated, but this is important to me or my career. This is how I can buy you 70 pair of shoes or whatever it
Right.
is. It's just that communication.
Right.
So I do feel like it's both. Them seeing me work hard will maybe help motivate them to do the same thing when they're older, or they're going to be like, no, she looks stressed all the time. I don't want to do it.
Right.
But I just had that communication. I'm not really stressed. This
Mhm.
is just, I mean, I was focused when you came in.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
and I
just
think
let her
that's a
know you would be
difference.
too when it's something that you are that dead serious about, something that you're passionate about, you will be the same.
Hmm.
You're not interested in the tech, but you're 12, 13, you wouldn't right now.
Right.
If it was volleyball or track or whatever she was doing, her crafts,
Hmm.
when I bring up something related to her, then she kind of gets it.
Yeah, I think that
So
that
it's just the
relation's
communication.
important. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
relation, the communication, I think that's important because, like you said, they're not going to, unless they're doing the exact same thing, they're not going to understand what it takes
Right.
to see that end goal or to actually achieve that. Whereas if you, like you say,
Right.
relate it to something that they're doing, I think that's important because then they really understand how much they want it, and
Yeah.
they kind of see that you're doing that to get to something that you want to do in that's your
Mhm.
version of grinding, and their version of grinding
Yeah.
is different as well, but it's sort of the same, if that makes sense. So I know
Yeah.
we've spent a lot of time. It's been a great conversation. I could talk to you for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to ask,
Yeah.
what advice would you give anyone that's pursuing the CCIE? And would your advice be different for a female studying for the CCIE, or would it be, the same?
Um, it would be the same for anybody, no
Hmm.
matter the age or the gender. And it's kind of not just a CCIE thing. It goes for everything in my life. That's what I was gonna say too when it came to my kids. They don't just see me go this hard for the IE. When I was racing cars, when I was bodybuilding, when I was running the gym, what I do now is what I did doing all of those things.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter if it's IE or any cert for any vendor. If it's starting a business, my advice is the same. Um, if you set a goal to do something, like you literally have to do whatever it takes to get that thing. The sacrifice is going to be there. Doing it's going to be hard. Not doing it's going to be hard. You just got to pick
Right.
your hard. And then I just kind of remember that it's temporary. And like I
Hmm.
said, the communication with my family is most important because we miss out on so many things. when I was dieting for bodybuilding shows through the holidays and I'm not eating or going out to eat with them and I'm not cooking, well, I'm cooking for them and I'm eating, cooking for me different ways. And people are like, why are you doing this? It's just the open communication. When I'm missing things to study, if I'm missing things to go to the gym for 2 hours because I got a show, it's just how bad do you want it?
Mm.
Um, it really is just that. My 11 through 3 a.m. is important for me to study because I want the IE that bad.
Yeah.
So it would just be that, like, you set the goal, now come up with a schedule and actual tangible things to do to get there. Imma study for this many hours a week. I'm scheduling this at this time or these days, and I'm not deviating because I have to be able to fit all my chores and my kids stuff and my errands and study and then work. Like, little stuff like laundry would pile up so fast,
And I
and then you
think
get behind on everything. Especially when you don't have a spouse to help you, or if your kids are too little to help you. I'm lucky I have all teenagers now.
hmm
So they cook and they clean and they take care of dogs, and two of them can drive. So if I needed something, I mean, I have
hmm
help now, but some people don't. So I think
Right.
even more communication scheduling is just those are no matter what the goal is. If it's IE, if it's like I'm a career changer. So I had to start at the bottom and it took me a long time to break in
Right.
because I had no experience.
hmm
It was just that studying and labbing. So when I got in these interviews and keep interviewing over and over and over and taking notes and learning what people wanted from me so that I can get in, all that was just putting in the time and the effort to learn and to do so that I could do. So
Wow.
I think that goes for the IE or for anything.
I think that
Just
that's yeah, that's
I don't
inspirational.
know.
I think that's
Just
thank you.
setting real things that you can do and sticking to it basically.
And I
Because it's
think
going to be hard, but everything we do is going to be hard. So,
exactly. And I think it's for those that yeah, well, especially when we not just even talking about the CCIE, I think, not getting there the first time, it's okay.
mhm.
It's not the end of the world, just because if you're speaking about the CCIE, just because, maybe your friend or somebody has passed the first time and you might not pass the first time or even the second time or even the third time, I think it's just having that determination and that motivation to
Right.
see that end goal and to still kind of stick with that schedule, like you say, to be able to get through.
Mhm. Right. And to try to I work really hard to stay positive. My husband, like he looks at me and he'll be like, "I wish I was like you," because I would be like, "I need a break because I'm trying not to think anything negative right now." And I
Mm,
will say something like that. And that's how I had to come away from the exams because like, how can I grow from this? What did I learn to do better
right.
next time? Because, like I said, when my daughter's fussing about me being so absent, and then I fly to Texas and I go through the whole thing and spend all the money, and you fail, it was like
Yeah, it's hard.
smack in the face.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
And so just really focusing on staying positive. What did I learn this time that's going to help me pass next time?
Amazing.
So
Amazing. The
staying positive, and when it comes to the stress that it puts on the family, just communication. Like, this is
mhm,
important to me. I need you guys to support kind of conversation.
yeah.
Once you put it on the table like that, most of the family understands.
Yeah, I think for those with families, I think yeah, communications are key, and I think having the support and the acceptance and the understanding that they know what it is that you need to do to an extent in terms of commitment
Mhm.
of time, I think is important, because if you don't have that, it can be difficult. I mean, even when you do have that, it can be
Right.
difficult because things change, and maybe, one day you've scheduled a study session and let's say your kids are poorly, things have to change, and that then throws everything else
Right.
out. And if you say, nope, I need to study, then arguments come and everything else that comes with it. So I think,
Mhm.
yeah, I think it communication is key in that respect.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have that, then it's going to be a difficult journey to be able to have that time to study and actually
Yeah.
get done what you need to do to have the best chance of getting that CCIE.
Yeah. You guys can't see my wall, but I have this big dry erase calendar, and it's just setting the expectations. My kids can look up there and be like, "All right, she's gonna study for 4 hours this day, but I know I have these days to ask her for stuff."
Right.
So it's just getting down to those kind of details, or I
Hmm.
mean, it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, that's a
But that's
great
for
idea.
everything. So that's always my advice, because I feel like that will go for anything.
Definitely.
If you're
No, that's a
starting a
great idea.
business, or if you're getting a cert,
Hmm.
whatever it is, just
No, that's great.
what are
Thank
you
you.
gonna do to actually get it if you really, really want it that bad? Like, what are you gonna do to get it? So
Yeah, and I think you really need to want the CCIE because
yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's not it's not a destination. It is a journey, and I think everyone's journey
Mhm.
to get in the CCIE is totally different. We've just spoke about your journey and my journey, and two very different journeys. Yet we're still trying to achieve the same thing. Yes, different
Yeah.
CCIEs, but it's the end goal's the same. And I think it's you need to
It's
really, if
definitely
you
a
don't want
beast.
it, then you're not gonna get it.
Yeah. I met someone, my second attempt, and I was like, he wants this more than anyone that I know.
Hmm.
He was flying to Texas from, like, I don't know, somewhere on the East Coast, and part of me was like, they have RTP over that way. Why is he coming way over here? So I'm thinking he wants this more than anyone I
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
And he was on his sixth try. And listening to his story, I was
Wow.
mind boggled. I was like, I would never. But he's
Wow.
given up so much and he sacrificed so much. And I hope his family is supportive. I hope he hasn't
Hmm.
lost a lot going through this, because he really wants this.
That's
And I
crazy.
remember sitting in the lobby with him like, good Lord.
I know people
So
that
everyone, like, there's some journeys, there's some stories out
eh,
there for this
I was just
exam.
gonna say, I know people that have literally been through a divorce because of this CCIE.
Right.
Like
I can
literally.
see. I could tell. I could see how that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But no, listen, it's been amazing speaking to you and listening to your story and your journey as well, Teneyia. I appreciate you again wanting to come on and share your story, and best of luck for the future. I mean, we'll keep in touch, obviously, on socials. But whatever you decide, whether it's the enterprise journey, whether you continue that or whether you decide to go down the SP track, good luck,
Mhm.
and I wish
Thank
I
you.
wish you all the
With
best.
both of them, I just need the lab, so I guess it's gonna be a
Right.
coin flip at this point.
Maybe your kids should flip the coin. Maybe that'll decide
Right.
it.
I'll have one of them draw it out of the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nah, that's good. But um
I appreciate it. Thank you.
no, thank you, definitely. And let's keep in touch. And for those that are listening or watching the podcast, you can follow Teneyia on Twitter. I will share a handle on the video as well, so do check that out. But thank you for watching and for listening to this episode today. The CCIE marathon continues.
Yes.